Good morning, dear students of class 12 science. Welcome to biology class. We are dealing with the chapter microbes in human welfare. In the last class, we have learned about the role of microbes in the generation of energy, or simply we can say production of biogas. So in today's class, we will continue with the role of microbes as biocontrol agents and microbes as biofertilizers. Okay, so under the biocontrol agents, we will talk about the biological control of pests and diseases, which is called the biopesticides, and we will talk about bioinsecticides. Clear? So let's begin with the first topic, microbes as biocontrol agents. Mainly in the agricultural fields, we are using insecticides, we are using the pesticides to control the insects and pests. Okay, but what is actually happening is that the use of these insecticides, these pesticides, they are polluting our environment. Alright, they are polluting the soil, and in return they will affect the health of human beings and animals also. Clear? So therefore the scientists have developed a novel approach to control the increase of this pest and the insects that will bring the destruction in the agricultural fields. Okay, so mainly a remarkable progress has been made in this particular field, where the scientists are trying to control the growth of these unwanted weeds, okay, the growth of these insects, the growth of this pest by the use of biopesticides. So what do you mean by biopesticides? Alright, simply we are trying to control the use of insecticides and pesticides. So we are moving toward the use of biopesticides. So what is biopesticides? So biopesticides are the pesticides which are used to control the weeds and the pest. Okay, here we are not using any type of chemicals, alright, but simply over here what we are using. Okay, so in case of biopesticides, we are using or we are following the natural method of pest and pathogen control. Clear? We are not using chemicals or any other types of stuffs that is polluting the soil or the environment. But over here we are using the natural method to control the pest and the pathogens, where we use viruses, bacteria, fungi and any other insects. Okay, so that's why it is called biocontrol or biological control also. So we are using the living agents, right, as a pesticides to control the growth of insects and pests. Clear? So we are moving from the conventional use of chemical insecticides and pesticides toward the use of biopesticides, where we are using the let's say the biological agents like viruses, bacteria, fungi and any other insect to control the insects and the pest, and such method is known as biocontrol or biological control. Hope it is clear for you. Now, biological control of pest and diseases. Alright, so biological control of pest and diseases, it involves natural predation rather than the use of chemicals. So we are not using the chemicals, but over here we are following the natural process of predator and the prey. Clear? Mainly the organic farmer believes that biodiversity improves the environment. Now what is biodiversity? The diversity of species, right? It may be plant or it may be animals. Okay, and a landscape becomes more sustainable when it has more biodiversity. Okay, therefore an organic farmer works in the direction which creates a system where the insect pests are not eradicated, where they are not removed, but are kept at a level which can be managed, alright, where we can control and we can balance their number. Clear? We are not trying to completely eradicate them, we are not trying to completely remove them, but we are trying to keep them within a balance level. Okay, but when we talk about the conventional methods, where we used to use the chemical methods, they will kill both the useful organisms and the harmful organisms. Okay, so it is essential for us to develop an understanding the web of interaction between the thousands of organisms that constitutes the fauna and flora of a particular habitat. Okay, so according to organic farming, eradication of pests by chemical pesticides is undesirable. Okay, because in their absence, the beneficial predator, the parasitic insects which depend on those pests, on those insects for their food, will also not survive. Because once those pests will not survive, will be dead, then those organisms, those animals, those insects which used to eat them, or which used to go on predation on them, will also not survive. Clear? So therefore the use of biochemical measures will greatly reduce our dependence on the use of toxic chemicals and the toxic pesticides. And the most important part of biological farming is to be aware of the predators as well as the pests that will inhabit the field. Alright, their feeding habits, their life cycles and their habitat, which will help us in developing the appropriate means of biocontrol. So here we are not trying to completely remove the insect pest, but we are trying to maintain that balance up to a certain level, okay, in our ecosystems, because those predators which used to feed on the insects or on this pest as a source of food will also not survive if those pests or the insects will be removed from the ecosystem or from the habitat. Clear? So here we are trying to decrease the use of chemical insecticides and the chemical pesticides, and we are trying to move towards the use of biopesticides. Clear? So we have got different types of means by which we are trying to control the growth of this unwanted pest and unwanted insects. We have got bioherbicides, okay, we have got bioinsecticides, but in our syllabus bioherbicide is not there, so we will mainly continue with the bioinsecticides, which are the living organisms which will help in the biological control of insect pest. And among these, the first one, the important one, is the soil bacterium Bacillus thuringiensis, also known as BT. Okay, Bacillus thuringiensis. Now this Bacillus thuringiensis is mainly introduced into the agricultural field to control the caterpillar of butterfly. Very carefully, okay. And these bacteriums are available in the sachets in a pouch in the form of the dried spores. Just for your approach, let's say I've given out the figure over here. Alright, this is mainly the bacteria Bacillus thuringiensis, which is mainly available in the market. Clear? Which is mainly used to control the caterpillars of butterfly. Clear? So this bacterium is available in the market in the sachets in the form of the dried spores. Now what do the spores contain? These spores are mixed with water and spread on the vulnerable plants like crucifers and the fruit trees. This spore, it contains the insecticidal cry protein. This is very, very important, okay. The spores of the Bacillus thuringiensis contains the insecticidal cry protein. Now the insect larvae, when they will ingest the BT spores while feeding on the plant or on the crop, they will get killed. Why? Because the spores which contains or which produces the insecticidal cry protein, they will release the toxin in the gut of the pest. Okay. So this bacteria will kill the caterpillar but leave the other insect unharmed. BT is the first biopesticide to be used on a commercial scale in the world, including India. So here you have to remember that Bacillus thuringiensis is a soil bacterium which is mainly used to control the larvae of butterfly in the agricultural field. Okay. BT is available in the sachets in the form of dry spores. The dry spores will produce insecticidal cry protein. Okay, so whenever the insect pest which will be feeding on the plant that contains these BT spores, when they ingest that spores within the gut of the pest will produce the toxins, and that toxins will kill the insect pest. Clear? Now these Bt spores will not kill the other animals or the other insects. The other insect remains unharmed. It will just kill the caterpillar. Okay, so Bt is the first biopesticide which was used commercially all over the world, including in India. Okay, and with the development of the gene transfer technique, with the advancement in the field of biology and biotechnological field, engineers have been able to introduce the Bt toxin genes into the plants. Clear? So by the help of genetic engineering, the genes from the body of the bacterium Bacillus thuringiensis now can be introduced directly into the plant. And when such plants containing the Bt toxin genes are attacked by the insect pest, then those insect pest will be harmed by the Bt toxin genes. So Bt cotton is one of the genetically modified crop which contain the Bt toxin genes. This Bt cotton, alright, has been, first of all, this cotton is very much harmed by the bollworm, the cotton bollworm. Clear? So in order to protect this cotton from the attack of bollworm, the scientists have genetically modified those cotton by the introduction of Bt toxin genes in the cotton plants. Now that cotton is known as the Bt cotton. This we will learn in details when we go through biotechnology. Okay. Now next one is the free living fungus Trichoderma, which is very common in the root ecosystems. It is also very effective in controlling the several plant pathogens. So over here you have to remember the role of Bacillus thuringiensis, Bt, that you have to remember the cry protein. Then the fungus Trichoderma, remember. Okay. The next one you have to remember is baculoviruses. Okay, which are the virus-based insecticides. They will infinitely kill the many insects and the arthropod pest. And it belongs to a class of virus called nucleopolyhedrovirus. Kindly remember this one. Okay. So nucleopolyhedrovirus is the most important baculovirus involved in biological control. Kindly remember this one. So baculoviruses are the viruses based by insecticides, and nucleopolyhedrovirus is the most important baculoviruses which involved in biological control of insect and pest. Now, it is very important that the baculoviruses are species specific. That means they will not kill all the insects, but they are specific to a particular species and have a narrow spectrum insecticidal effect. So they do not have any negative effect on other organisms. So they are known to control the pests like potato beetles, aphids, and the corn borers, which usually comes. Okay, baculoviruses are very important one. Alright, because they are species specific and they have a narrow spectrum. They will not affect the other organisms, so they will only affect those organisms, alright, in which it can show its action. So they are mainly used to control the pests like potato beetles, okay, aphids, and the corn borer. So these are the few examples of the bioinsecticides which we are using. So remember, Bacillus thuringiensis, number 2 Trichoderma, and number 3 baculoviruses. Clear? Next one, we learn about the benefits of bioinsecticides. What are the advantages? These are non-persistent, they will not remain in the ecosystems, they are non-toxic, and they are biodegradable, they can be easily degraded. Number 2, they maintain the biodiversity and the stability of the ecosystems. That means the stability of the ecosystem will not be disturbed by the use of bioinsecticides. But when we used to apply the conventional chemicals like DDT, they will surely hamper the stability of the ecosystems. Okay. Then growing pest resistance dependency on toxic chemical pesticides, and thereby decreases the chances of environmental pollution and degradation. So these are the advantage or the benefits of bioinsecticides. Next one, what is IPM? IPM means integrated pest management, which is the practice to control the pest through the biological methods. Alright, and the use of chemical pesticides to bare minimum and only when it is essential. So in IPM we are trying to control the pest by using the biological methods. We are not trying to use, or we are not trying to completely depend on the use of those chemicals. Okay, we are just barely trying to use the chemical fertilizer or chemical pesticides or the chemical insecticides to control the insect pest. But in IPM we are mainly trying to use the biological method to control the insect pest, and we will try to reduce the use of chemical insecticides and the pesticides, and we will use it only when it is essential. Okay, so what are the practices which are followed under IPM? Number 1, to keep the pest population under control by using the natural parasites, predator and the parasitoids. So we are trying to control the pest populations by using the natural predators, by using the natural parasites. We are not using the chemicals, insecticides, pesticides, but we are trying to control their population by using their natural predators, by using the natural parasites. Number 2, to use non-pollutant pesticides which will not pollute the environment, like pyrethrin, azathioxine, cynerine. Okay, then growing pest-resistant varieties of plants, rotation of crops, mixed cropping, these are all practiced under the IPM. Growing pest-resistant varieties means those plants which cannot be attacked by the pest, and this can be grown by the help of genetic engineering. If you remember BT cotton. Okay, so these are the practices which are being followed under the IPM. Next one, we'll talk about microbes as biofertilizers. Okay, because biofertilizers enrich the nutrient quality of the soils, and mainly bacteria, cyanobacteria and fungi are the main source of biofertilizers. Okay, so bacteria will improve the soil fertility by adding the nutrients to their biological activity. Okay, so here we'll talk about the use of those biological agents which can be used as biofertilizers. Okay, so here we are trying to decrease the use of chemical fertilizers in order to increase the agricultural products. Clear? To reduce the pollution of the soil, to reduce the pollution of the groundwater and the water body, because when you are using chemical fertilizers, due to the agricultural runoff, they will pollute the nearby water body. Okay, so here we are trying to decrease the use of chemical fertilizer so that it will also decrease the environmental pollution, it will decrease the pollution of water body and the groundwater. Okay, so therefore there is increasing awareness to switch over to organic farming, where we will try to avoid the use of chemical fertilizers. Alright, so organic farming is the raising of crops by the use of biofertilizers. Biofertilizers enrich the nutrient quality of soil, which I already mentioned. Okay, so they will try to increase the nutrient quality of the soil so that there will be better productivity. So what are the advantages of biofertilizers? Number 1, they are low cost fertilizers. They do not pollute the environment. Number 3, they reduce the dependency on chemical fertilizers which will cause pollution. They are effective under semi-arid conditions. They do not allow pathogens to flourish, and they produce vitamins and growth promoting biochemicals. So these are the advantages of biofertilizers. Now we'll go through the examples of few microbes which can be used as biofertilizers. The first one is bacteria, because we have mentioned that bacteria will increase the soil fertility by adding nutrients due to their biological activity. So here we will talk about the first one, which is symbiotic nitrogen fixing bacteria, or legume rhizobium symbiosis, or rhizobial biofertilizer. So all of you have heard about the term rhizobium, which lives in a symbiotic association with the root nodules of leguminous plants. Alright, this rhizobium will help in the nitrogen fixation from the atmosphere, because plants are not able to directly absorb the nitrogen from the atmosphere, so they need the help of bacterium which can absorb those nitrogens and which can be available to those plants. Okay, so rhizobium lives in a symbiotic association with the root nodules of leguminous plants, and it will help in nitrogen, atmospheric nitrogen fixation, and those fixed nitrogens by this bacteria will be available to the plants. Clear? So within the root nodules, this bacteria will fix, this bacteria means rhizobium. Rhizobium will fix the atmospheric nitrogen in the presence of a reddish pigment called lake hemoglobin. This is very, very important. Okay, name of the pigment. So this rhizobium, which is present in the root nodules of leguminous plants, will absorb the atmospheric nitrogens in the presence of a reddish pigment called lake hemoglobin. Okay, the enzyme nitrogenase catalyzes the fixation of nitrogen under anaerobic conditions. Lake hemoglobin combines with oxygen and protects the enzyme nitrogenase. So here you have to remember the two important terms, lake hemoglobin and nitrogenase. Okay, so the Role of rhizobiums is mainly in nitrogen fixation because plants are not able to directly absorb the atmospheric nitrogen. So they live in symbiotic associations with the bacteria rhizobium. So these rhizobiums are present in the root nodules of leguminous plants where they will absorb the or fix the atmospheric nitrogens, and which can be available to the plants. Alright, and the plants can use those nitrogens to produce the proteins or the amino acids. Okay, so within the root nodules, these rhizobiums will absorb the atmospheric nitrogens in the presence of the pigment called lake hemoglobin. The enzyme nitrogenase will help in the fixation of atmospheric nitrogens, and therefore this lake hemoglobin will combine with oxygen and will protect the enzymatic activity of nitrogenase. So therefore, for an increased yield of crop, a combination of phosphatic fertilizers with rhizobium culture is recommended. Okay, so this is one of the first examples of bacteria which can be used as biofertilizers. It lives in a symbiotic association. Number 2, free living or non-symbiotic bacteria. Kindly copy it. Okay, such examples like Azotobacter, Bacillus polymyxa, which are soil bacteria. This Azotobacter, Bacillus polymyxa, they fix free nitrogens of the air and enrich the soil. Azotobacter results in increased yield, and there is a saving of nitrogenous fertilizers up to 10 to 25% per hectare, kg per hectare. Okay, so here we are using this bacteria where it can increase the productivity of the plant, or it will enrich the nutrient quality of the soils. Clear? Next one is loose association of nitrogen fixing bacteria, where we will find the Azospirillum, which on inoculations, on combinations with the simple seeds, will increase the dry weight of cereals, and when it is mixed with a chemical fertilizers, it will give a high quality yield or better productivity. Okay. Number 2, cyanobacteria is biofertilizers. Which one? Symbiotic cyanobacterial biofertilizers. So cyanobacteria has got the property of nitrogen fixation, and owing to that property of nitrogen fixation, it can be used as a biofertilizer. Okay, so here you can find the word azole. Azole is the fast growing and floating fern, and in the cavity of the leaves, we will find a cyanobacterium Anabaena azole. Okay, so within the leaves of this azole, we will find the cyanobacterium Anabaena azole. Now this algae will fix the free nitrogen of the air and exudates nitrogenous compounds into the cavity of the leaves. Okay, so cyanobacterium will help in the nitrogen fixations, and those nitrogens will be supplied to the plants. Such leaves are an excellent biofertilizers. So these cyanobacteria, owing to the property of nitrogen fixation, they are being used as in biofertilizers. Remember the name Anabaena azole, which are found in the leaf of the fern azole. Now next one, fungi as biofertilizers. Now over here the word is mycorrhiza. It's very important. Okay, what is mycorrhiza? So mycorrhiza is a mutual association of the fungal hyphae with the roots of the certain seed-bearing plants. Alright, so mycorrhiza is a mutual association of the fungi or the fungus with the roots of seed-bearing plants. Alright, the common fungal partners are Glomus, Amanita and Laccaria. So remember this thing. So mycorrhiza is a mutual associations where both the partners will be mutually benefited. Clear? So it is between the fungal hyphae and the roots of the certain seed-bearing plants. Now, what is the advantage in case of these associations? So mycorrhizae increases the absorption of water and mineral. That means the fungal hyphae, okay, the fungus. The fungal hyphae will increase the absorption of water and minerals, and it causes the solubilization of organic matter from soil humus, and also protect the young roots from the attack of pathogen. That means this is the advantage the fungus is giving to the plant. It is helping in the absorption of water and minerals. It is protecting the root of the plant from the attack of pathogens. It is helping in the solubilization of organic matter from the soil humus. So this is the advantage the fungus is giving to the roots of the plants. And in return, what is it getting from the plant? In return, the fungus in turn is obtaining the sugar from the plant. So in this case, both the fungus and the roots of the plants are being mutually beneficial. fetid. Okay, so this is the association of mycorrhiza or the advantage of mycorrhiza. And there are two types of mycorrhiza, endomycorrhiza and the ectomycorrhiza, and no need to go through it. Clear? So here we have talked about, so today we have discussed about the role of fungus or the role of microbes in pest control. We have learned as bioinsecticides. Then we have gone through biofertilizers. So we have learned about IPM also. Under biofertilizers, we have learned about the role of bacteria, cyanobacteria, and the fungi. And the fungi is mainly mycorrhiza. Clear? So no need to go in details. All right, because the syllabus has been further reduced. Clear? So kindly go through this chapter. Now from the next class we will begin with the new chapter. So microbes in human welfare is over. So from next class we'll begin with the new chapter. Thank you. See you in next class.